AITA for refusing to let my brother move into my house after he accidentally burned down his own. I'm a 34-year-old guy with what my family calls an annoyingly stable life. I worked my way into a decent tech job, paid off my debt, bought a small 3-bedroom house in a quiet area, and I like my peaceful, predictable routines. Coffee at 6, treadmill by 7, work from home, dinner by 6, bed by 10. Nothing exciting, but I like it that way. My younger brother, Adam, is 28 and the opposite of predictable. He is charismatic, hilarious, and honestly a magnet for chaos. Growing up, he was the one who set off fireworks in the garage because he found them in a drawer, who fed raccoons because he thought they looked hungry, who once tried to use a drone to deliver a sandwich to my window. Everyone forgave him everything because he was the charming one. I was the responsible one who cleaned up his messes. This dynamic never changed, not even in adulthood. I was the one who co-signed a car loan he ended up defaulting on, the one who lent him money after his brief stint at being his own boss resulted in bounce checks, the one who let him stay with me for 3 months after he got fired for what he described as a misunderstanding involving an inflatable dinosaur costume. So when I got the call from him 2 months ago saying he needed help again, I already felt the dreaded knot in my stomach. He said in his exact words, "Hey, so don't freak out, but my place is kind of gone." It turned out he had accidentally burned down his small rental house. He was making homemade churros because he saw a recipe video online. Instead of reading the part about using a thermometer for the oil, he heated it on high until it looked hot, then got distracted by a phone call from his ex. The pot ignited, he panicked, tried to move it outside, tripped, spilled flaming oil onto a rug, and the rest is predictable. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but the house was destroyed and his landlord refused to renew his lease anywhere, let alone front him a new place while insurance sorted things out. He told me he needed a place to stay just for a little while. I immediately felt myself step back into the old role, but this time I hesitated. The last time he lived with me, my house was left in near ruins by the time he moved out. He broke the dishwasher because he thought he could speed up a cycle by pulling on a pipe he assumed was decorative. He clogged my shower with what turned out to be glitter and fake moss from a craft kit he had rinsed off after a Halloween party. He left chicken in the oven overnight, twice, and made my entire house smell like something had died inside the walls for a week. My routine disappeared. I felt like a guest in my own home, tiptoeing around the chaos. When he finally moved out, I promised myself I would not repeat that again. But here he was homeless and desperate. I told him I would pay for a long-term Airbnb for him for a month. He said that would be too expensive. I offered to help him find a studio sublet. He said he needed something stable. I offered to let him stay for 1 week while he got paperwork arranged. He said I was being heartless and impossible. I stuck to the 1-week offer. He arrived with twice as much stuff as any normal person should own, including a broken arcade machine he found on the sidewalk and insisted he would repair. He put it in my dining room without asking. He brought his cat, which I didn't know he still had, and which is allergic to boundaries and furniture. He ate all the snacks I had bought for the week within 24 hours. He spilled coffee on my laptop keyboard and said it happened because the cat startled him. He attempted to cook churros again on day 2, even after the fire trauma, because he wanted redemption. By day 3, I told him the week was now down to 5 days. He accused me of punishing him for an accident. My mother called me and said I needed to show compassion. My father said boys will be boys for the millionth time. My younger sister told me to stop being so rigid because you know how Adam is. Exactly. That is why I don't want him living with me. On day 4, I came downstairs to find him painting the broken arcade machine directly on my hardwood floors without any tarp. Blue paint, the kind that stains. He said he thought I wouldn't mind because it was just a little restoration project, and he was improving the aesthetics of my dining room. He didn't understand why I got angry. That night, I told him he needed to leave the next morning. I booked him an affordable room in a shared rental house and offered to pay the first month. He exploded. He said I was abandoning him when he was at his lowest. He said real family steps up and that I was acting like a landlord, not a brother. He left, but afterward he sent several messages saying I had ruined our relationship. My parents are on his side. My sister is on his side. Even some cousins messaged me saying I should have let him stay because he's been through enough. Now I'm second-guessing myself. He did lose everything. He did make a mistake that could happen to someone careless, but not malicious. Maybe I should have pushed through the chaos for a while longer instead of prioritizing my routine. But at the same time, I feel like I've been carrying the weight of his choices for most of my life. And every time I give him an inch, he destroys the yard, the fence, the house, and the neighborhood. So here I am asking strangers on the internet. AITA for refusing to let my brother move in after he burned down his house, and for kicking him out early when the chaos started all over again. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée wear my late mother's wedding dress, even though the entire family says I'm being selfish. Before anyone jumps in, yes, I know how this sounds. It's messy, emotional, and the kind of thing that gets strangers fighting in the comments. But after the explosion my family caused last week, I need an outside view before I start doubting my own sanity. I'm 32, female, and my brother Mark is 29. Our mom passed away 5 years ago after a long illness. Toward the end, she began sorting through her belongings and making decisions about sentimental items. One of the most important was her wedding dress. She had it boxed, professionally preserved, and wrote a letter that she taped to the inside of the lid. The letter basically said that she hoped one day I might wear it, but if I didn't want to or never got married, the dress was mine to do with as I chose. She explicitly did not mention Mark or his future spouse. After she died, I took the dress home with me. At the time, I had a long-term boyfriend, and I thought there was a real chance I might wear it someday. That relationship ended, and I'm single now, but I still cherish the dress because it feels like a piece of her I can keep safe. Fast forward to about 6 months ago. Mark proposed to his girlfriend, Jenna. They've been dating 3 years, and honestly, she's fine. I don't dislike her, but we're not close. She's the type who posts every moment online and narrates everything she does like she's being followed by an invisible camera crew. Not my scene, but whatever. About 2 months into their engagement, Jenna asked if she and Mark could come over to talk wedding stuff. I thought they wanted advice or maybe a family heirloom to display. Instead, she sat down on my couch, clasped her hands like she was giving a TED Talk, and announced that she had always dreamed of wearing a vintage dress with sentimental history. She then asked if she could wear our mom's dress. Not borrow it, wear it, tailor it, alter it permanently to fit her style. I felt like someone punched me in the chest. I told her the dress wasn't available, and that mom had left it to me with specific instructions. Jenna immediately looked offended, and Mark said I should at least think about it. I didn't need to think about it. It was a hard no. I guess Jenna thought I'd eventually cave because she kept bringing it up. She'd send pictures of the dress to Mark's family group chat to ask everyone's opinions. She even posted a poll on her Instagram story asking whether people preferred a classic timeless gown with personal family history or a soulless modern boutique dress, which was so obviously about mom's dress that multiple friends messaged me asking if I had given my blessing. I confronted her and told her to stop posting about the dress. She said I was being overly dramatic and that she was just excited. I told her excitement doesn't give her the right to parade my mother's things around like a fashion accessory. From that moment on, things spiraled. First, Mark sided with Jenna, saying Mom would have wanted to share her legacy. I told him he had no right to speak for her when she'd written down exactly what she wanted. Then our dad got involved. Dad is exhausted by conflict and hates saying no to anyone. He called me saying that while he understood my point, maybe I could let Jenna have the dress just this once because it would mean a lot to Mark. I asked if Mom ever mentioned wanting her future daughter-in-law to wear the dress. He admitted she hadn't, but said she hadn't said not to either. I reminded him she did say what she wanted in writing. He sighed heavily and told me I was making things harder than they needed to be. The next blow came from Mark's future mother-in-law. She emailed me. Not called. Emailed. She wrote this dramatic message about how mothers live on through the women who join the family, and that denying Jenna the honor of wearing the dress was robbing them of a symbolic connection. She even added that she hoped I would not sabotage Jenna's special day out of misplaced grief. I was so angry I had to shut my laptop and walk around the block twice. Things reached peak insanity last weekend when the entire family gathered for our aunt's birthday dinner. Jenna strutted in wearing a white dress. Not a wedding dress, but a white cocktail dress, and this smug little smile. During dessert, she loudly announced that she had found a tailor willing to work with old, delicate fabrics and asked whether I could bring Mom's dress to the first fitting next month. I told her, in front of everyone, that she was never going to touch that dress, tailor or no tailor. She burst into tears and ran to the bathroom. Mark yelled at me for humiliating her. His future mother-in-law glared at me like I'd strangled a puppy. My dad buried his face in his hands. After dinner, my phone exploded with messages calling me stubborn, selfish, cold-hearted, and jealous. They said things like, "It's just a dress, you're single so you don't need it, and the worst, you only want to keep it out of spite." I finally told everyone that the dress was no longer a topic of discussion. If Jenna brings it up again, she won't be invited to my home. If Mark brings it up again, I'll block him until after the wedding. I even told Dad I'd store the dress in a safe deposit box to stop people from pestering me. Now I'm being treated like I'm the one ruining the wedding. Apparently, Jenna has been crying for days and saying she doesn't feel welcome in the family because I guard my mother's things like a dragon. Mark accused me of having a martyr complex. Dad begged me to apologize just to keep the peace. But I don't feel like I'm in the wrong here. Mom trusted me with that dress. She made her wishes clear. And even if she hadn't, it would still be mine, and I wouldn't owe anyone an explanation. Still, after so much pressure, part of me is wondering if I'm overreacting. It's possible I'm being too protective or letting grief cloud my judgment. I don't want to be the villain in my family, and I don't want to sabotage Mark's wedding, even though I truly believe Jenna is the one turning this into a circus. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée wear my late mother's wedding dress, even if it means being labeled the family villain. AITA for refusing to let my brother and his fiancée hold their wedding on my property after they tried to rewrite parts of my life to make their big day more aesthetic. I, 34M, live on a semi-rural property I bought about 8 years ago. It's a renovated old farmhouse with a large field, a pond, a small orchard, and a big red barn that I turned into a workshop. I put basically all my savings, sweat, and time into this place. It means a lot to me because I grew up in a pretty chaotic environment, and the house I own now is the first place that has ever really felt like home. My younger brother, 29M, is engaged to Jenna, 28F. Jenna is very into curated lifestyle vibes. Her Instagram is like one long mood board of cottagecore, boho chic, light brown filters, and pictures of her in wide-brimmed hats holding mugs of tea she probably didn't drink. I don't mind it. It's her hobby, and she seems to enjoy it. The trouble started when they asked to hold their wedding on my property. At first, I was excited. I thought it would be meaningful for our family, and I liked the idea of my home being used for something joyful. I agreed, with the one condition being that I would not fundamentally alter parts of the property or tear down anything significant. Then Jenna got involved in planning. The first red flag was when she asked if I could temporarily remove the chain-link fence on one side of my property because it clashed with the pastoral aesthetic. This fence is the only thing separating my land from my neighbor's pasture. The neighbor owns goats that will absolutely wander everywhere if the fence is down. I told her no. She was annoyed but dropped it. Then she asked if I could move my truck and tools out of the barn so they could convert it into a reception hall. That one I actually agreed to, even though it meant rearranging a lot of things and taking a couple days off work to do it. I didn't mind helping, but after that, her requests got bigger. She asked if I could paint the barn white because the classic red barn look didn't match the color palette she picked. The barn is original to the old farm and freshly painted as of last year. I told her absolutely not. She whined, but my brother told her to let it go. Then she asked if I would tear out the patch of blackberry bushes near the pond because they ruined the symmetry of her photo plans. These bushes are old, produce fruit every summer, and are home to a lot of birds. I said no again. Then came the thing that really set me off. On one side of the house is a small stone patio with a wooden bench I built myself. The bench has a plaque on it dedicated to our late grandmother. She practically raised us and was the one steady person in both our lives. The bench is the most sentimental thing on the whole property. Jenna asked me to remove the plaque for the wedding because, and I quote, "We don't want random memorials in the background of pictures. It feels weird." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. When I said absolutely not, she said I was being rigid and refusing to collaborate. My brother tried to smooth it over, saying they weren't trying to disrespect our grandmother. They just wanted the photos to have a consistent vibe. I told them that the plaque stays, period. After that conversation, I figured they would back off. Instead, the next week, I found Jenna on my property with her wedding planner taking photos and measurements. She didn't tell me she was coming, so I walked out to say hello. While I'm talking to them, I hear the planner mention something about hiding the bench during the ceremony using lattice and florals. I immediately shut that down. I told them that if they tried to cover up or move anything sentimental on my property, they wouldn't be having the wedding here at all. Jenna got upset and said I was being dramatic and controlling. I told her she was the one trying to alter every part of my home for a one-day event. She said, "It's not altering, it's curating." That word set me off more than it should have. My brother later called me and begged me to reconsider. He said, "Jenna's been dreaming of this perfect wedding since she was a kid, and my property is the closest thing to her dream venue." I told him that I was fine hosting the wedding, but I was done with the demands. The property stays as is. Respect the space or find a new location. 2 days later, I got a long message from Jenna basically saying that since I'm so emotionally attached to random objects, they decided it would be better to move the wedding elsewhere. But she ended the message by saying she hoped I wouldn't hold this decision against them, because it's not personal. Not personal. About the plaque dedicated to our grandmother. I told her she made the right decision and that I hoped the new venue worked out. My brother hasn't spoken to me in a week. My mom is trying to stay out of it, but subtly hinted that maybe I could have compromised more for the sake of family harmony. I don't think I'm wrong for expecting my home to be respected, especially the parts that have emotional meaning. But I also know weddings make people weird and dramatic, and maybe I should have just let them drape some fabric over the bench for a few hours if it meant keeping the peace. AITA? AITA for refusing to let my husband's estranged daughter move into our home, even though it made my entire extended family call me a monster? Before anyone jumps to conclusions, let me start with the fact that I never wanted to be the villain here. I married my husband, Aaron, 5 years ago. He has a 19-year-old daughter, Lily, from a previous relationship. When Aaron and I first got together, Lily wanted nothing to do with him. Her mother had spent years telling her he'd abandoned them, which wasn't really true, but also wasn't completely false. Aaron admitted that he wasn't the best dad in his 20s. He worked constantly, traveled a lot, and didn't fight hard enough for custody because he thought staying out of conflict was best for his kid. It wasn't a good choice, but it wasn't malicious. For most of our marriage, Lily stayed distant. She wouldn't come to our wedding. She refused to meet me. Anytime Aaron reached out, she'd shut him down in a cold, almost clinical way. I didn't blame her, and every time Aaron came home heartbroken, I listened, comforted him, and encouraged him not to give up, but also not to push. Eventually, he stopped trying so hard. He figured that when she was older, maybe she'd want a relationship. Fast forward to 3 months ago, when Lily apparently had a huge falling out with her mother. Something about household rules, breaking curfew, and her mother threatening to kick her out if she didn't follow them. Suddenly, Lily reached out to Aaron for the first time in years, and Aaron was over the moon. I had never seen him that hopeful. At first, Lily only wanted to talk on the phone. Then she asked to meet at a cafe. I told Aaron to go alone, to give him space, and he came home glowing, saying that she was finally open to reconnecting. Then, 2 days later, she dropped the bomb. She wanted to move in with us. Not temporarily, not for a couple of weeks. She wanted to live with us until she got her life together, which according to her had no clear timeline. Here's where things get complicated. We only have a 2-bedroom house. The second bedroom is my office. I work from home full-time, and my job requires privacy because I'm constantly on video calls with clients. That room isn't a guest room with a desk in it. It's a fully functioning workspace with equipment, files, and a setup that took a long time and a lot of money to get right. If I lost that room, I would literally not be able to work from home anymore. When Aaron told Lily she could move in and we'd figure something out, I was stunned. He hadn't even talked to me first. I reminded him that I need that office. His suggestion? That I move my workspace into the dining room. We don't have doors separating it from the living room, and Lily's presence would mean constant noise, not to mention the complete lack of privacy for my job. I explained that wasn't feasible. He told me I was being dramatic, that lots of people work at their dining tables. I asked him where Lily would sleep. He said we would temporarily move my office equipment into storage and convert the room for her. I told him absolutely not. That wasn't temporary. Once the equipment was moved, reassembled, and the room changed, it would take weeks to set back up. And Lily had made it clear she wasn't planning to pay rent or contribute financially. She wanted a free home base while she sorted out her life. I suggested other solutions. Maybe Lily could stay with Aaron's sister. Maybe she could stay with a friend. Maybe we could help her find a short-term rental. Aaron shot down every idea, saying it was his chance to be a father and he wasn't going to waste it. When I said that I supported him reconnecting, just not sacrificing my ability to work, he accused me of hating his daughter. That stung, because I have never said anything bad about her. I just wanted boundaries. Lily came over for dinner to talk it out, but her tone was condescending from the moment she walked in. She acted like she was doing us a favor by agreeing to live with us. She said she didn't feel comfortable staying anywhere else because those people don't know her. I asked her, very calmly, what her plan was for working or contributing financially. She shrugged and said she'd figure out eventually, but she needed stability first. Then she said something that made everything snap into focus. You already have everything you want. Why can't you let me have something for once? She referred to the office as just a room and said she'd seen bigger closets. She suggested I could work in a backyard, at cafes, or even in our bedroom. And Aaron backed her up. I told them both that working in public spaces violated confidentiality rules. Working in the backyard wasn't possible in bad weather, and working in the bedroom would mean waking up at 5 a.m. every day, so Aaron wouldn't be trapped in a room with me on my calls. Lily rolled her eyes and said I was making excuses. Aaron told me I needed to prioritize family. At that point, I said no. I told Lily she couldn't move in. I said I would help her with moving costs, help her find a room to rent, even lend her money for deposits, but she was not living here. She got upset and stormed out, telling Aaron she should have known I'd turn him against her. He didn't correct her. Instead, he turned to me and said, I can't believe you would sabotage my relationship with my daughter. Since then, his entire family has been blowing up my phone saying I'm heartless and jealous of Lily, that I'm threatened by her presence, that I'm punishing her for Aaron's mistakes. Even Lily's mother sent me a nasty message saying I was abusing my power in the household. But I cannot lose my job, and I cannot have a near stranger dictating the use of my home. Aaron is still furious with me, sleeping in the guest bed that Lily apparently was supposed to take. He says I'm ruining everything. So, am I the monster everyone thinks I am? Or am I being reasonable by refusing to give up the only space that allows me to support our household? AITA? AITA for refusing to let my estranged sister move into the home I inherited, even though she's claiming it's her only chance to stay off the streets. A few months ago, my mother passed away after a long illness. I was the child who lived closest, so I handled most of the caregiving, the paperwork, the emergency room runs, the medication schedules, and the long nights when she couldn't sleep unless someone was beside her. My sister, Dana, lives about 4 hours away. She visited maybe 3 times in the last 2 years and always framed it as doing me a huge favor, like showing up for a weekend was equivalent to the daily grind I had. Growing up, Dana always positioned herself as the golden child. She was charismatic, loud, fun, and perpetually in trouble, but my parents kept giving her second chances. I was the quiet kid who kept things working in the background. I didn't resent her for most of our childhood, but things shifted in our late 20s. She became more irresponsible, more entitled, and more convinced that the world owed her a safety net. When Mom got sick, Dana told the family she would come back home and take care of things. Instead, she showed up for a week got overwhelmed, and left with some excuse about needing to handle important work commitments. She insisted that she cared, but caregiving wasn't her strength and that Mom wouldn't want her messing things up. Meanwhile, I rearranged my entire life. When Mom died, the will was read. I expected the estate to be split 50-50ths. Instead, Mom left the house to me outright and left Dana a significant amount of money. Not equal, but still a large chunk. I was surprised, but the lawyer said Mom had reasoned that Dana couldn't handle the responsibility of property and that I had effectively managed the house for years. Dana took the news poorly. She called me crying, insisting that Mom would never have done this if she'd been in her right mind. She hinted that I manipulated Mom. I ignored it for the sake of keeping the peace. About 2 months later, I got a frantic call from Dana. She said she'd made some bad financial decisions. By that, she meant she had blown through most of the money Mom left her. She went on a long rant about medical bills for her dog, a boyfriend who used her credit card and ghosted her, and a short-lived attempt to start a candle business that burned through thousands with no return. She admitted she was being evicted from her apartment. She asked if she could move into the house with me, just until she got back on her feet. She argued that since it was our childhood home, she had a right to be there. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that. I had just finished renovating the place using my own savings, and I finally felt like I could breathe after years of caretaking. I also know Dana. She doesn't move in temporarily. She roots herself into people's lives and resources until someone forces her out. I told her she needed to figure out another plan, maybe stay with a friend or look for a room to rent. She immediately accused me of being heartless. She said Mom would never forgive me for letting her firstborn daughter become homeless. She said that she was my family and that family helps each other unconditionally. I told her that family doesn't get to weaponize guilt whenever they want something. She hung up on me. Over the next few days, I got multiple calls from extended family members I barely talked to. Apparently, Dana had told them I kicked her out of Mom's home and left her destitute. She failed to mention the inheritance she blew or the fact that she hasn't worked consistently in years. A few aunts lecture me about compassion. One cousin sent me a long text about how trauma affects people differently and how I needed to give Dana stability. A week later, Dana showed up at my house unannounced with her car packed full of her belongings and her dog in the passenger seat. She acted like I had already agreed. I told her she couldn't stay. She tried to walk past me anyway, but I blocked the door. She started yelling loud enough for the neighbors to hear. She said I was cruel, selfish, cold, obsessed with controlling everything, and that I had always been jealous of her. Her meltdown was so intense that one of the neighbors asked if everything was okay. That embarrassed her enough that she left, but not before calling me a monster. That night, she wrote a long post on social media, painting herself as a victim abandoned by her only sibling. Several people commented offering sympathy. Some indirect relatives messaged me again, telling me I should be ashamed. The thing is, I don't hate my sister. I want her to get help, but I know she will drain me emotionally, financially, and mentally if she moves in. She has never paid rent on time. She doesn't clean up after herself. She gets bored and starts chaotic projects, and she has a habit of turning every disagreement into a dramatic explosion. I've spent years being the reliable one while she burns bridges. I can't let her burn down the last piece of stability I have. I considered offering to pay for a couple of weeks in a motel, but something in me hesitated. Every time I've bailed her out in the past, it's only made things worse. She expects it now. It's like the moment I help her with one problem, she manufactures another. My brother-in-law, I'm close with my husband's family, told me that Dana actually has multiple acquaintances who offered to let her stay for a short time, but she turned them down because she wanted something more comfortable and familiar. He said she specifically wants the house because she sees it as rightfully hers, and because staying with me would mean she could recreate the dynamic where she leans on me for everything. Despite all of this, I can't shake the guilt. It's the childhood home. She's my sister. I don't want her to be homeless. But I also don't want to sacrifice my home, peace, and mental health for someone who refuses to take responsibility for anything. So now I'm wondering, AITA for refusing to let my sister move into the house, even if it means she might end up on the streets? AITA for refusing to let my husband move his adult daughter into our home after he promised me for years that we would finally be empty nesters. I'm a 47-year-old woman and have been married to my husband, Mark, for 9 years. We each came into the marriage with children from previous relationships. My son, now 22, moved out 2 years ago, and his daughter, Lily, 24, moved out at 18. For the last couple of years, it has just been the two of us in our house, and it has honestly been the happiest period of my adult life. I love my kids, and I love his, but I also love quiet mornings, not worrying about other people's laundry, and not having extra cars blocking the driveway. For many years, Mark and I talked about how, once the kids were all grown and out, we would finally travel, spend weekends away, and even start a small business together. Every time we got through a stressful parenting moment, he'd say something like, "Someday, it'll be just you and me, babe." It became our little mantra for surviving the chaos of raising teenagers. Here's where the problem starts. About 2 months ago, Lily broke up with her boyfriend and moved out of the apartment they shared. She didn't tell her dad much at first, only that the guy was toxic and that she had been staying on different friends' couches. I felt bad for her. I even told Mark we should offer her some money to get a cheap rental room. But he said he didn't want to butt in unless she asked for help. Last week, she called crying, saying she couldn't keep couch hopping because one friend had gotten annoyed and another had a new roommate moving in. She asked if she could stay with us temporarily. Not permanently, just for a bit. Those were her exact words. Before responding, I asked Mark to talk privately. I reminded him of all the conversations we had about this being our time, how we'd finally reached the point we'd planned for since the day we blended our families. I asked him whether he really thought bringing Lily back into the house was a good idea, especially because she and I have had tension in the past. She has this habit of assuming I'm trying to control her or judge her, even when I'm not. When she lived with us during high school, she constantly accused me of invading her privacy if I asked ordinary questions like what time she'd be home for dinner. I tried really hard to be supportive, but she always viewed me as competition rather than a parental figure. Mark said he understood, but insisted this would be short-term and that she really needed help. I suggested we pay for her to stay in an extended stay hotel for a few weeks or help her with a deposit on a new place. He said that was ridiculous because she was broke and hotels were expensive, and that it was cruel not to let his daughter come home after a breakup. I told him I wasn't comfortable with it, and that I felt like I was losing the life we'd been building toward for nearly a decade. We argued for 3 days straight. I felt like the bad guy for not wanting a 24-year-old to move back in, but I also felt like I was being asked to sacrifice my peace and everything we planned for. The thing is, Lily has always had a way of dominating any space she's in. She takes over the kitchen with her baking projects, leaves clothes draped over the couch, plays loud shows at night, and sleeps until noon. Mark admitted she's messy, but said we could set rules. I pointed out that we tried that before, and she accused me of being controlling and then complained to her dad that I didn't treat her like a real adult. Long story short, Mark ended up telling Lily yes without waiting for me to agree. I only found out because she texted me asking if I could clear out the guest room closet for her. I saw red. I told Mark he had completely betrayed my trust. He claimed I left him no choice because I was being unreasonable and acting like she was some random stranger instead of his daughter. I told him he should have at least respected that this affects my home as much as his. I told him, flat out, that I would not live with Lily again. If she moved in, I was going to go stay with my sister temporarily. Not as a threat, but because I genuinely cannot live in a tense environment again. I told him I loved him, but I felt like he was erasing the life we had been working toward. He blew up, saying I was abandoning him and making him choose between his wife and his daughter. I said he already made that choice the moment he told her yes without me. He said I was heartless and selfish, and that if the roles were reversed, he would never deny my son a place to stay. I said that was unfair because my son actually listens to boundaries and doesn't treat our home like a commune. Now we're barely speaking. Lily is supposed to come over in 2 days. I still haven't cleared the closet, and I don't plan to. My sister has already told me I can stay with her as long as needed. Mark says if I leave, it will permanently damage our marriage. I said that him ignoring my boundaries already did. I genuinely don't know if I'm being cruel here or if I'm justified in wanting the life I was promised. Am I the asshole? AITA for refusing to host my brother's entire wedding at my house after he accidentally promised everyone we would? My brother, Kyle, has always been the kind of guy who never thinks more than 5 minutes ahead. Growing up, he was the golden child. Charming, athletic, endlessly optimistic, and constantly skating by on charisma more than responsibility. I, on the other hand, was the planner, the one who made spreadsheets for family trips, the one who remembered birthdays, the one who learned early how to actually follow through on things. I am 34 now and own a house with a good-sized backyard. It's not a mansion, but it's nice. My partner and I have put a lot of time and money into repairing and improving it. It's our safe place. Kyle is 31 and getting married to his fiancée, Erin, who is actually very sweet. I genuinely like her. She balances him out, or so I thought. A few months ago, we had a family barbecue at my place. Everyone was in a good mood, chatting and drinking, and at some point someone commented on how nice the yard looked. Kyle, with a beer in his hand and zero warning, said something like, "This is perfect. We should just have the wedding here." Everyone laughed and clapped and thought he was joking. I laughed too, mostly at how typical it was of him to blurt something out without thinking. And he didn't laugh. He just grinned wider and said, "No, seriously, why not? It would save us a ton of money. And besides, it's basically like family property anyway." That last part should have been my red flag. I tried to downplay it. I said something like, "We'll talk later, okay?" But Kyle kept spinning the idea to everyone there, almost selling it like a pitch. The ceremony on the lawn, the reception under string lights, the whole aesthetic. People started chiming in, saying things like, "Oh, wow, yes." And that would be so beautiful. I noticed Erin looked a little uneasy, but she didn't say anything at the time. The next day, I texted Kyle and said, "Just to be clear, we aren't hosting the wedding at my house." He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. I thought that meant we were good. I was wrong. Fast forward 2 months. I'm at brunch with my cousin, who asked me about what upgrades I'm planning for the wedding. I must have looked confused because she laughed and said, "Kyle told us you're hosting. He said you offered forever ago." I immediately called my brother, who casually confirmed it. Not just confirmed it, but acted like it was all settled. He had already told Erin's parents, invited relatives from out of state, and even told some of the vendors. He said, "Don't worry, we're not doing anything crazy. Just like 80 people. 80 in my backyard, using my home, my bathroom, my everything." He had gone as far as giving vendors my address without telling me. One of them had already messaged me on Instagram. I was furious, but tried to stay calm. I explained, in the most measured voice I could muster, that I never agreed to this. He kept insisting I had basically agreed by not saying no that night. I reminded him that I explicitly texted him the next day. He dismissed it as me stressing over nothing. He kept repeating, "It'll be easy. You barely have to do anything." No matter how many times I explained that hosting 80 people is absolutely something, he wouldn't budge. He even tried guilt-tripping me, saying he can't afford another venue and that if his wedding gets ruined, it'll be on me. This from a guy who spends money on new tech every month and still acts surprised when bills show up. My parents got involved and, predictably, took his side. They said hosting was the least I could do and that family helps family. They pointed out that I have a nice house, that it's only one day, and that Kyle deserves to have his dream wedding. They didn't mention that they have a huge house with a huge yard, easily twice the size of mine. When I brought that up, they claimed the HOA wouldn't allow it. Our neighborhood has the same HOA, so that was clearly a lie. Meanwhile, Erin apologized privately and said she thought he had already asked me. She looked mortified. She said she tried to talk him into choosing a cheaper venue, but he told her he had it covered. She even admitted that she warned him months ago that my house wasn't his to offer. But apparently, he told her he knew I'd come around because I always do. That line hit me harder than anything else. Because it was true. I always did. Growing up, I covered for him. I lent him money I never got back. I drove him home drunk at 3 a.m. more times than I can count. I helped him cram for exams he barely studied for. He messed things up, and I fixed them. And now here I am again, the built-in safety net he just assumes will be there. This time, I said no. Firmly. Unequivocally. Kyle lost it. full screaming, accusing me of trying to sabotage his marriage, of being jealous, of being selfish. My parents piled on, saying I was humiliating the family by backing out after promising. I told them all that I never promised and that this boundary wasn't up for negotiation. Then Kyle posted some dramatic Facebook status about how some people would rather see your life fall apart than lift a finger to help. People started messaging me asking why I was destroying my brother's big day. He has apparently told everyone that I agreed months ago and then changed my mind at the last minute for no reason. Now half the family thinks I'm the villain. The other half is staying out of it. Aaron is stuck in the middle, apologizing to me and trying to rein Kyle in, but he keeps digging in deeper. The wedding is in 4 months, and he still hasn't booked a venue, insisting I'll cave eventually. I won't, but now I'm second-guessing myself. It really is one day. It really would help him financially. And I can't deny that I have the space. But the entitlement is unreal. The disrespect is unreal. And part of me thinks if I give in now, he'll walk all over me for the rest of our lives. So, AITA for refusing to host the wedding at my house, even though it's technically possible and would solve their problems. AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my house after she called me a thief and tried to take credit for something I spent years building. I'm 33, married, 2 kids under 8. I own a house I spent the last decade renovating. I bought it cheap after college, worked every spare weekend on it, learned how to do plumbing, drywall, all of it. It became kind of a running joke in the family that my house was my 3rd child. I poured everything into it, both literally and emotionally. My younger sister, 28F, hasn't had the easiest life, but a lot of it comes from her own choices. She drops things when they get hard and blames everyone else. She moved in with our mom, moved out, moved in with some guy, moved back with mom, and so on. She works, but never saves. Most recently, she broke up with her boyfriend and suddenly couldn't afford rent. Again, a month ago, she came to family dinner at my place for the first time in years. She walked through my house like she was touring a museum, running her hands along walls and opening doors. She kept saying things like, "Wow, must be nice to have all this handed to you," or "It's crazy how some people get lucky." At first I thought she was joking. I laughed it off, but she kept going and even said that our parents must have given me money under the table because, in her words, there's no way you could have done all this alone. That hit a nerve. I told her I did it alone and that if she wanted proof, she could ask literally anyone who knew me for the last decade. She responded with, "You always lie to make yourself look good. You're not fooling anyone." My mom tried to defuse it, but my sister got louder. She kept insisting I was pretending to be self-made and that she knew the truth. Eventually, I asked her to stop insulting me in my own home. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic. The next morning, she texted me a half-hearted non-apology. "Sorry if you got offended last night. You know how I get." I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, she called me in tears, saying her roommate was kicking her out and she had nowhere to go. She wanted to move in with me for a few months. She didn't ask. She told me she needed my guest room. I told her it wasn't going to work. We have 2 young kids. The guest room is used as a home office, and also, she had insulted me repeatedly in my own house. She said I was holding a grudge over a tiny misunderstanding. Then she started guilt-tripping, that I was abandoning her, that family helps each other, that she would only be there a little while, that she'd be invisible. I said no. She exploded, saying I had a God complex because I had a stupid house and thought I was better than her. She accused me again of lying about my success and said I was punishing her just because I knew she was telling the truth. I hung up. Within an hour, I got text from my mom saying my sister was crying and didn't have options. Mom begged me to reconsider, saying it would only be temporary. I told her I'm not willing to bring someone toxic into my home just to repeat the cycle. Later that night, my sister posted on Facebook, classic, about family who act superior and let children suffer because they'd rather hoard space than help. She didn't name me, but everyone knew. The next morning, my cousin called and told me my sister was telling people that I owed her because she had supported me emotionally for years. This is untrue. If anything, I've always been the one supporting her. My wife is completely on my side. She said she won't have my sister in our house because she doesn't trust her not to start screaming at us or bad-mouthing us to our kids. My wife even said she was worried my sister might go through her stuff, and honestly, that's not unrealistic. My mom is now upset with me, saying she raised us to take care of each other. She says my sister is just insecure and emotional, and I should rise above it. I said I'm tired of being expected to absorb every impact she makes on her own life. My mom said I'm being cruel. My sister, meanwhile, keeps texting me random guilt messages like, I guess you don't care if I end up homeless, and remember I'm still your sister. She also threw in, I hope you enjoy your perfect little life in your perfect little house you pretend you built yourself. At this point, I've blocked her for a bit because I honestly can't take it. But here's where I'm doubting myself. I know she really is in a bad spot. And yes, she's responsible for a lot of it, but part of me wonders if I'm being too rigid. My kids adore their aunt when she's in a good mood, and I don't want them to think I turn my back on family. I talked to my wife again last night. She said that I've rescued my sister countless times, and it never leads anywhere. She reminded me that when my sister is stable, she never shows up, never asks how we're doing, never visits the kids. But the moment she needs something, she appears like a storm. I keep thinking about the way she walked through my house, insisting I didn't earn it, and how she wanted to move into the very space she said I didn't deserve. I do want to help her in some way. I offer to help her look for a room to rent or drive her to her appointments, but she wants the free room and only the free room. She says anything else is fake help. Now half my family thinks I'm being cold-hearted and the rest are quietly avoiding taking sides. And I'm sitting here wondering if it really is cruel not to let a family member crash in a guest room I don't technically need, even if she's treated me like garbage. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in, even though she's struggling, because of how she treated me? Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to let my brother move into my house, even though he says I owe him for our childhood. I'm 32 and have owned my home for 6 years. It's not a mansion, but it's a solid 3-bedroom place in a decent neighborhood. I worked my butt off for it. I graduated college with scholarships, lived frugally, worked 2 jobs, and saved every cent I could. No one helped me financially. My brother, Eric, is 29. Throughout our childhood, he was the golden child. Our parents weren't wealthy, but whatever extra attention or money existed went to him. He was talented in sports, got all the new equipment, and was chauffeured to tournaments every weekend. I wasn't neglected exactly, but things like school trips or new clothes were always a debate, and I usually settled for hand-me-downs. When I was 15, I wanted a laptop for school. They said it was too expensive. When Eric was 13, they bought him a gaming PC without blinking. I didn't resent him when we were kids. At the time, I assumed that was normal. It didn't really hit me until college applications. I worked to pay for test fees, saved for dorm expenses, and handled everything myself. My parents told me they couldn't contribute financially. Meanwhile, they paid for Eric's summer sports camp. When I started college, they gave Eric the larger bedroom at home and turned my old room into a storage space. Fast forward to adulthood. Eric never went to college and drifted between jobs. He wasn't lazy exactly, but he never stuck with anything. He'd get excited for a few months, then quit because the job was too boring, too early, too strict, or too far. He moved into a few apartments with friends, but those situations broke down when he didn't pay rent on time or used the living room as a personal workshop. After a while, our parents let him live with them rent-free. They complained about it constantly, but they never set boundaries. Last year, things changed. My parents retired and downsized, selling the house. They told Eric he had 6 months to get stable and move out. He didn't. Instead, he spent most of the time playing in a casual adult soccer league, working part-time at a sporting goods store, and planning a future business venture that somehow never progressed. When the house sold, he scrambled to find a place, but didn't save enough for move-in costs. He asked if he could stay with me for a few weeks. I said no. I told him I valued my privacy and didn't want to take on the responsibility of housing him. I also pointed out that he had plenty of notice to prepare. He got angry and said I was being cold. He insisted siblings are supposed to help each other. My parents called me afterward. They didn't outright demand I take him in, but the guilt trip was intense. They said Eric just needs stability, and I should show some family loyalty. I kept firm and said no. Instead of solving the issue, Eric couch surfed with friends for a month until he overstayed his welcome. Then he started telling everyone in the family that I was abandoning him. A few relatives messaged me with snide remarks like, "Remember who was there for you growing up," which is ironic because no one was paying attention to me back then. Eventually, Eric ended up renting a single room in a rundown house shared with 4 other people. He complained constantly. Every conversation turned into him listing inconveniences: the noise, the tiny kitchen, the landlord that micromanages, the bad Wi-Fi. He would vent for 40 minutes at a time. I tried to be sympathetic, but not enabling. 2 months ago, he asked if we could talk seriously. We met at a coffee shop. He opened by saying he was ready to make a real plan. Then he asked again if he could move in with me. This time, he had a whole pitch. He said he would pay me a fair rent that was far below market rate. He said he would help with chores, but admitted he works late some days and might be too tired. He also said he expected to use one of the bedrooms as an equipment room for filming training videos for his business idea. I said that was a hard no. He got upset, saying that I was sabotaging his chance at building a real future. He accused me of holding a grudge from childhood and acting like I was better than him because I got lucky with my job. I reminded him that I didn't get lucky. I worked. I sacrificed. I saved. No one gave me a house. I bought it. He countered that our parents favored him because I was naturally more independent, and apparently that meant I shouldn't complain about it now. I told him he needed to learn to stand on his own. He called me selfish and stormed out. That night, my mother called and said Eric cried in her car and told her I said I didn't want him in my life. I never said that. I told her exactly what happened. She sighed dramatically and said families shouldn't be so transactional. She said Eric looked up to me and needed me. I said adults need to take responsibility, and I wasn't going to be another safety net he could crash into. Since then, things have been tense. Eric barely speaks to me, but when he does, it's passive-aggressive. My parents are disappointed in me. A few family members are whispering that success has made me cold. Some relatives, especially the ones who struggle financially themselves, say I'm being reasonable. Still, part of me wonders if I should have helped more. Am I being too harsh? Is it wrong to draw such a firm boundary, even when it means watching my brother struggle? Or is it unfair that he assumes he's entitled to the things I worked for? Am I the bad guy for refusing to let him move in? AITA for refusing to let my brother and his fiancée use my house for their wedding after they publicly humiliated me for being obsessed with control. I'm a 34-year-old woman, single, child-free, and perfectly content. I bought my house 3 years ago after working my butt off for over a decade. It's a quirky, older place with a huge backyard, a big oak tree, and a wraparound porch that everyone seems to love. It looks like the type of house Pinterest people drool over, which, unfortunately, is exactly what has led me to this situation. My younger brother, Dan, is 28 and recently got engaged to his fiancée, Sarah. They've been dating about 2 years. For context, I have always had a complicated relationship with Dan because he was the golden child growing up, straight-A athlete, charming, good-looking, favored by our parents. I was the quiet, responsible sibling who our parents seemed to forget about unless something needed to be done. I don't resent him for that anymore, but it shaped our dynamic. Even as adults, he still tends to assume I'm the responsible one who will handle things, so he can go live his best life. When Dan and Sarah got engaged, I congratulated them and expected nothing more than to show up at the wedding, maybe bring a thoughtful gift and go home. But several months ago, they invited me to brunch at my house. I thought it was just a casual visit. They brought pastries and acted weirdly cheerful, the over-the-top kind of cheerful you only see when someone wants something expensive. After some small talk, they got to the point. They wanted to have their wedding at my house. Not just the ceremony, but the entire event. Rehearsal dinner, ceremony, reception, photos, everything. I told them gently that I wasn't comfortable with that. My house is not a venue. My yard would get destroyed by 120 guests, and the idea of catering trucks, rental tents, portable bathrooms, amplified music, and drunk relatives swarming my property gave me anxiety. They kept pushing, though. They said it would save them a ton of money, that my backyard was perfect, and that it would mean so much to them. I held firm. I told them no. I even gave my reasons calmly. I work from home. I like my space. I don't want to deal with the cleanup or potential damage. I don't want strangers walking through my house using my bathroom, and so on. They left looking disappointed, but I didn't think more of it. Fast forward a month. While scrolling through Instagram, I saw a video clip from Sarah's bridal shower. Someone had recorded her making a speech. In it, she joked about how some people in the family think their house is too fancy to host a little wedding. She rolled her eyes dramatically, but then she added something that really stung. I guess some people need to feel in control of everything. It's sad when your own sibling cares more about their backyard than your happiness. Everyone laughed. Dan stood next to her, smiling awkwardly, but not stopping her. I was stunned. I wasn't even invited to the shower. The clip wound up being shared on TikTok by one of her friends with a caption like, "When the bougie sister refuses to help with the wedding." The comments were harsh. People said I sounded selfish, bitter, jealous, controlling. Others said things like if my sister had a nice house and refused, I'd cut her off. I confronted Dan privately. I asked him what the hell that speech was about and why he let his fiancée publicly shame me. He said I was overreacting and that Sarah was just venting because she was stressed. He said I should have expected some teasing because family helps family and everyone knows you like things a certain way. I told him I didn't like being mocked online by strangers who didn't know me. He told me I was making things worse and needed to let it go for the sake of family peace. Things escalated when my mom called me practically in tears. She said Sarah was upset because people were starting to call her a bridezilla. My mom begged me to apologize to Sarah to smooth things over so the wedding planning could continue without drama. I told her I had nothing to apologize for. I had set a boundary, was mocked for it, and now somehow I was at fault? Mom said I was being stubborn. Then the real kicker. 2 weeks ago, Sarah messaged me with this long, flowery apology that somehow wasn't really an apology. She said she regretted phrasing things poorly during the bridal shower and understood why I might have felt singled out. But the message ended with her saying she hoped I would reconsider and allow them to use my house, because it would mean putting the past behind us and showing the world what true family love looks like. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I told her no. Not only no, but absolutely not. I said after the humiliation, the online mockery, and the total lack of respect, my home would not be used for their wedding. I said the topic was closed for good and that I didn't want to discuss it again. Cue meltdown. Dan called me furious. He said I was being petty and vindictive. He said Sarah had apologized and that I needed to grow up. I told him the boundary had been set months ago and that their behavior cemented my decision. He told me I was effectively ruining their dream wedding. I told him that wasn't my responsibility. Since then, my family has taken sides. My dad is neutral, but clearly annoyed the drama exists. My mom is siding hard with Dan and Sarah, saying I should help them because you're the only one who can. My cousins think it's hilarious and have been sending me screenshots of strangers online, still debating whether I'm selfish. My best friend says I should block half my relatives until this blows over. Meanwhile, Dan and Sarah have now booked a banquet hall they clearly don't like because every conversation somehow finds its way back to how perfect my backyard would have been. It's been weeks of tension, guilt trips, angry texts, and passive-aggressive group chat messages. So now I am wondering, AITA for refusing to let them have their wedding at my home, even after they publicly embarrassed me, and for refusing again, even after their half-hearted apology? Because I don't feel guilty, but everyone insists I should. AITA for telling my sister I don't want her in my wedding party after she tried to rewrite my entire wedding. Growing up, my sister Lila and I were close in the weird, uneven way siblings sometimes are. She was loud, charismatic, and constantly in the spotlight. I was quieter and more comfortable hanging behind the scenes. Our dynamic worked for the most part, though she had a habit of taking over things that weren't hers to take. School projects, birthday parties, even choosing the restaurant for family dinners. She always found a way to assert herself. I learned early that pushing back usually caused a blow-up, so I stopped trying. Fast forward to now. I'm getting married next spring to my fiancé, Jonah, who is the calmest human being alive. My family loves him, and I truly thought wedding planning would be peaceful and drama-free. I was extremely wrong. When I got engaged, Lila immediately assumed she'd be maid of honor. I had already chosen my best friend Zoe for that role. I told Lila she would absolutely be in the bridal party, but I wanted Zoe as MOH because she's been my closest friend for almost 15 years. Lila didn't love that, but pretended to accept it, which I now see as the beginning of the storm. The first big problem happened at my engagement party. Without asking me, Lila had turned the gathering into what she called a preview of the wedding. She decorated the venue with silver and rose gold balloons, brought in a photo backdrop with our names on it, hired a videographer, and even announced a toast where she referred to herself as the person organizing the big day. She said in a joking tone, but it wasn't a joke. I pulled her aside and told her she needed to chill out, and she gave me a teary speech about just wanting everything to be special. I tried to let it go, but then during actual wedding planning, things escalated. Lila began inserting herself into every vendor meeting, florists, cake tastings, dress fittings, venue walkthroughs, even when she wasn't invited. She'd show up early, sit next to me, and take over the conversation. She'd tell the florist that she knew the bride and that I didn't really like certain colors. She told the baker that I was undecided about wanting a traditional flavor when I already picked one. She pushed heavily for pink peonies everywhere, even though I specifically said I didn't want pink anywhere in the palette. My fiancé noticed my stress and asked if we should set firmer boundaries. I told him I would handle it, but every conversation felt like walking through a minefield. One day, we were choosing bridesmaid dresses. The plan was for the bridesmaids to wear deep forest green because our wedding colors are green, cream, and gold. Lila arrived with a garment bag and insisted everyone try on dresses she had pre-selected. Blush pink, floor-length gowns with sequins. She said they photographed better. When I told her firmly that wasn't the palette, she said, "You're making a mistake. Green is depressing." She said it while sitting in a green dress she chose for herself at the fitting. Still, I tried to keep things peaceful. The final straw came 2 months ago at a lunch with my mom and the planner. I excused myself to use the restroom. When I came back, Lila was showing the planner an entirely different layout for the ceremony, including a floral arch I never asked for in gold chairs instead of the classic wooden ones we'd already reserved. She was also trying to move the processional order so she would walk down the aisle directly before me, despite not being the MOH. I asked what she was doing, and she said she was saving me from bad aesthetic choices. She said the wedding would be boring unless she stepped in. She even told the planner, "Don't worry, she gets overwhelmed, so I'm handling the details." I was stunned and embarrassed. When we got home, I called her and told her she needed to stop involving herself. She responded by crying and saying she'd only done so much because she loves me and wants the wedding to be perfect. Then she pivoted and said she felt pushed out because she wasn't maid of honor. After thinking for a weekend, I decided I needed a real boundary. I called her and said that while she could attend the wedding, I no longer wanted her in the bridal party because she wasn't respecting my decisions. I told her I needed to enjoy planning my own wedding without constantly being overridden. She exploded. She accused me of humiliating her, said I was ungrateful, and claimed that I was ruining our sister bond over petty things. She told the entire family that I kicked her out for no reason and painted herself as the victim who was just trying to help. My mom thinks I went too far and should have given Lila a clearer list of do's and don'ts. My dad is staying neutral. My fiancé thinks I made the right call, but wants to make sure I don't regret it later. Several cousins reached out to say Lila is devastated and that weddings make people act crazy, implying I should forgive her to keep the peace. I feel guilty, but I also feel relieved. For the first time in months, I'm not dreading wedding planning. But now I keep wondering if I overreacted. Maybe I should have handled it differently. Maybe kicking her out of the bridal party was too harsh. Or maybe it was the only way she'd ever actually stop. AITA for uninviting my sister from being a bridesmaid because she tried to take over my wedding. AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my house after she blew up my backyard wedding and told everyone I was a controlling monster. I never expected to write something like this, but my family is basically split into two camps, and I'm being told I'm heartless. I need some outside opinions because right now I'm either the villain or the only sane person left. I'm 32, married to M, 34. We bought our house 3 years ago and have spent a lot of time turning the big backyard into a space we loved. My sister Kay, 28, has always had drama swirling around her. She's extremely charismatic, extremely messy, and seems convinced that life is a movie where she's the misunderstood protagonist. She bounces between jobs and apartments, usually staying with friends until she burns that bridge and moves on. Last year, when Em and I were planning our wedding, we decided to have it in our backyard. We kept it small, about 40 people, mostly family and a few close friends. My one rule was that everyone had to be seated during the ceremony because the space was tight, and my photographer warned us that wandering guests would screw up angles and shots. It felt like a simple rule. Kay was a bridesmaid, which at the time felt non-negotiable. She made a fuss about the dress because she said the color washed her out. She made a fuss about the shoes because she said she couldn't walk in them. She changed her hairstyle 3 times that morning and yelled at the stylist for not understanding the vibe. Normal Kay chaos. I was already resigned. Right before the ceremony started, Kay came up to me and said she didn't want to stand with the other bridesmaids because she felt overly visible. I didn't understand what that meant, but this wasn't the time for a discussion, so I just told her to join the others when the music started. The ceremony began. Everyone took their seats. The bridesmaids walked. Then Kay walked, and instead of taking her place, she stepped directly into the center aisle, pulled out her phone, and began live streaming the ceremony to her social media followers. Not just live streaming, commentating, talking loudly into the camera about how underappreciated she felt and how this wedding was cute but extremely basic, and how maybe someday she'd have a real wedding, unlike this budget backyard aesthetic. Em saw my face and squeezed my hands, but all I could hear was her voice dragging us to an audience of strangers while we were literally exchanging vows. My dad got up and tried to gently pull her aside. Kay jerked away and shouted that she had a right to document the day. That's when the photographer's assistant bumped into her because she was blocking the shot, causing Kay to drop her phone, which made her scream at everyone for sabotaging her. It completely ruined the ceremony. Everyone was uncomfortable. My mother was crying. Kay stormed inside the house and didn't come out for the rest of the night except to loudly tell one of my cousins that I never supported her creative ambitions. After that, I didn't speak to her for months. She never apologized. Instead, she posted a long rant online about how her family refuses to appreciate her passion for storytelling and how certain people, me, are too controlling to let her shine. It got a lot of sympathy from her followers. Several distant relatives reached out to me asking why I humiliated her. I blocked her on everything. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago. Kay calls me out of nowhere and opens with, "So I'm getting evicted and I need a place to stay for a few months. Obviously, I thought of you." I said no. Immediately. No explanation needed. She acted shocked then annoyed. She said family was supposed to help each other. I told her she never even apologized for the wedding incident or the months of trashing me online. She said she doesn't apologize for living authentically. I told her she couldn't live authentically in my house. She hung up. Within hours, my parents called, telling me I should reconsider because she's in a hard place, she's learned her lesson, and family sticks together. I asked them if she apologized to them. They avoided the question. Turns out she didn't. She framed this whole thing as me being petty about a minor misunderstanding. Then my mom slipped and admitted that Kay told them she would get back on her feet faster if she could use our house to film her content because of the aesthetic backyard she used to mock. I told them again, this was not happening. Now my family insists I'm cruel for letting my sister become homeless. Kay has been posting dramatic things online like, when your own blood won't help you because they never wanted you to succeed, which resulted in more relatives messaging me. M supports me completely. He said he won't have a repeat of last year's disaster, and he doesn't trust Kay not to make our lives miserable the moment boundaries are enforced. But now even my dad, the calmest person I know, told me yesterday that Kay is spiraling and I should be the bigger person. I finally told them all that if she needs a place, she can live with them. Suddenly, it wasn't such an emergency. Now I'm apparently heartless because I won't help my sister survive, and I'm being told that one embarrassing day shouldn't define a lifetime relationship. I feel bad that she's struggling, but I also feel like letting her into my house is lighting a match and dropping it into a drawer full of fireworks. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in after she ruined my wedding and blasted me online for months? AITA for refusing to help my sister financially even though it's causing a huge family rift? I, 28F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I grew up with my parents, my younger sister, 25F, and my grandparents in a middle-class household. I got a decent job right out of college, live on my own, and have been managing to save a bit of money over the years. My sister, on the other hand, has always struggled with money management. She's had multiple part-time jobs and has bounced between living at home and renting cheap apartments, often asking for help from our parents or me whenever she hit a financial rough patch. Things came to a head recently when my sister started dating this guy, Tom, who has a history of being unemployed and heavily in debt. They moved in together last year, and it became clear pretty quickly that Tom is financially irresponsible as well. My sister has now taken on a lease with him, and she started asking me for help with rent, groceries, and even bills that were clearly inflated or poorly managed. I tried to help in small ways at first, like lending her $50 here and there or helping her negotiate bills, but it quickly escalated. About 2 months ago, she called me in tears, saying that their landlord was threatening eviction because they were behind on rent. I asked her why she hadn't reached out to our parents or why she hadn't talked to Tom about taking on a second job. She admitted that they had both been spending money on things they didn't need, online shopping, eating out, and even a small weekend trip to the city. I told her I couldn't keep bailing them out if they weren't going to make any effort to change their habits. She got really angry and accused me of being selfish and cold, saying that I should help my family when they're in crisis. I reminded her that I do help in ways that aren't just handing her money, like advising her on budgeting, sharing job opportunities, and helping her with resumes. But she insisted that she needed financial support. I offered to help her set up a strict budget, or even help her apply for assistance programs. But she refused, saying it wasn't the same as just giving her cash. Our parents have since gotten involved. They've been sending me messages asking why I'm not helping my sister financially, and they keep trying to guilt me by saying things like, "You're lucky you don't have her problems," or "You wouldn't abandon family in need." I explained that I'm not refusing to help her completely. I just refuse to give her money that enables her and Tom to continue making reckless decisions. I suggested that our parents might want to consider helping her instead, since they have more disposable income than I do. This caused a huge blow-up over the family group chat, with my sister calling me a heartless sibling and my mom saying I'm turning my back on family. The tipping point was last week. She sent me a message saying that they had been evicted because I wouldn't help, and she's now staying at a friend's place temporarily. She said I caused this by not giving her the money she needed, and that I should feel guilty. My parents are still upset, saying that I need to step up and that I'm being unreasonable. I honestly feel torn. On one hand, I do want to support my sister, but I also feel like giving her money now would just perpetuate her poor financial habits. I've tried to help in ways that don't involve just handing her cash, but she refuses to accept it. I also feel like my parents are putting a lot of pressure on me, which is making me feel guilty even though I know logically that I'm not responsible for her financial choices as an adult. I've been trying to stay out of it, but every time I mention my reasons, I get accused of being selfish and unloving. I do feel bad that she's temporarily homeless, but I can't shake the feeling that bailing her out would just make things worse in the long run. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister financial help even though it's upsetting my family? AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she excluded me from the planning process? I, 28F, have always been very close with my younger sister, Emma, 25F, but recently, our relationship has become strained due to her upcoming wedding. Emma got engaged about a year ago, and from the beginning, I was excited to help her. I have always loved organizing events and am usually the one who coordinates family gatherings, birthdays, and even small office parties. Naturally, I assumed she would want my input and help for her big day. About 9 months ago, she started planning her wedding with her fiancé, Alex, 27M. At first, she asked for my opinion on minor things like color schemes and guest lists, which I happily provided. But as time went on, she began making major decisions without consulting me at all. She booked venues, chose catering, and even selected dresses without telling me anything. Whenever I asked to be included or offered advice, she would brush me off, saying she wanted it to be a surprise or that she had it under control. I tried to respect her wishes, but it was hurtful to feel completely sidelined from something that, in my mind, should have been a shared experience. My frustration peaked when she told me she had hired a wedding planner and that she didn't think my help was necessary. I understand that professional planners exist for a reason, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was intentionally excluding me. About 3 months ago, she started asking for favors in ways that felt passive-aggressive. For example, she asked me to help by managing some of her friends who were supposed to help with decorations, but she gave me no real instructions. When I tried to clarify what she wanted, she would get defensive, saying I was overthinking things and making it complicated. This pattern repeated over and over. I began feeling like I was being used as a buffer between her and her friends rather than being involved in any meaningful way. 2 months ago, I decided I couldn't continue like this. I told her that I loved her and wanted to support her, but I couldn't keep being asked to help in ways that felt dismissive or controlling. I offered to attend any meetings with her planner or be available for specific tasks, but I would not take responsibility for aspects of the wedding she clearly wanted to manage herself. She responded by saying she was disappointed in me and that I wasn't being the supportive sister she expected. Things came to a head last weekend when she invited me over to finalize the seating arrangements. I arrived and found out she had already finalized everything with her planner and simply wanted me to check that no one on the guest list had conflicts. When I asked if I could suggest any adjustments, she flatly said no, that everything was final. At that moment, I realized that my involvement in her wedding would always be limited to doing whatever she decided for me to do. I left without helping further and sent her a message explaining my feelings. I told her that I wanted our relationship to remain strong, but that I could not pretend to be involved in something where I had no voice and was treated more like a hired assistant than a sister. Emma's response was angry and hurtful. She accused me of being selfish, controlling, and jealous. She said that if I really loved her, I would do whatever she wanted without complaining. Since then, our family has been taking sides. My parents are sympathetic and understand that I felt excluded, but some of our extended family believes I overreacted. Friends of Emma have messaged me saying that she's in a stressful place and that I need to let her lead. I know weddings are stressful, but I also feel that a wedding should include input from the people closest to the bride, especially siblings. I haven't attended any more planning meetings and have only offered to help in very minor ways, like sending invitations or assisting with logistics if she asks specifically. Emma has now stopped speaking to me entirely except for short messages about tasks she wants completed. I'm worried that refusing to blindly follow her directions is permanently damaging our relationship. But I also can't bring myself to participate in something where I feel invisible and disrespected. I feel torn because I don't want to ruin my sister's wedding or our relationship, but I also need to maintain my self-respect. I'm starting to feel guilty because I know she's stressed, but at the same time, I feel hurt that she doesn't seem to care about my feelings at all. I've tried explaining my perspective calmly and respectfully, but it only seems to make her angrier. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to take a backseat role in my sister's wedding and insisting on being treated as an equal participant in the planning process? Or am I wrong for expecting to be included in one of the most important events in my sister's life? Character count, 6,157 if you want. I can write an even longer, more detailed version that hits closer to 7,000 characters with deeper family dynamics, side stories, and emotional tension. It would feel even more like a popular Reddit AITA post. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my brother bring his girlfriend to our family reunion, even though everyone else thinks I'm overreacting. I, 28F, have always been close with my family, especially my younger brother, Ethan, 25M. We grew up in a pretty tight-knit family that values traditions, one of which is our annual summer reunion at my parents' lake house. This reunion has been happening every year for decades, and it's always been a chance for extended family to catch up, eat a lot of food, play some cornhole, and just relax together. Everyone is expected to show up, unless there's a serious reason not to. The issue started earlier this year when Ethan started dating someone new. Let's call her Lisa, 26F. I don't know how to put this gently, but Lisa rubbed me the wrong way from the very beginning. She's loud, confrontational, and tends to dominate conversations. She's also notoriously dramatic and has a history of turning minor conflicts into major blowouts, at least according to a couple of people in our family who have interacted with her before. I didn't want to be judgmental, but my gut was telling me that she's the type of person who would disrupt the usually calm vibe of our reunions. Fast forward to last month. My parents sent out the invitation for the reunion, and Ethan replied saying he wanted to bring Lisa. I told him straight up that I was not comfortable with that. I explained that she had never been to a family event before, and I didn't want the reunion to turn into a scene. Ethan got upset, said I was being controlling, and argued that it's his girlfriend and she's allowed to come. I told him I understood that, but as the host, my parents actually host, but I help organize everything. I felt like I had the right to express concerns about the dynamics she might bring. Ethan called me paranoid and unreasonable. When I told my parents about the situation, they immediately brushed off my concerns. They said I was overreacting and that Lisa should be welcome just like anyone else. They reminded me that it's been a long time since we've seen Ethan bring a serious girlfriend to the reunion, so it might be a good chance to get to know her. I tried explaining that I wasn't trying to hurt Ethan or Lisa, but that I had serious reservations based on what I've seen in past interactions and the stories I've heard. They still said no, Lisa should come, and that I needed to lighten up. At this point, I felt stuck. I didn't want to ruin the reunion for everyone else, but I also didn't want to have Lisa there and risk her causing unnecessary drama. I tried talking to Ethan again, explaining that I didn't want to exclude him, but that I had a genuine concern for the peace of the gathering. He said that if I forced him to choose, he would skip the reunion entirely. That put me in a terrible position because I really wanted my brother to be there, but I also didn't want Lisa to be a ticking time bomb during the reunion. After a lot of deliberation, I made a decision. I told Ethan that he could attend, but Lisa could not. I framed it as a way to protect everyone from potential conflict. I tried to be diplomatic and explain my reasoning as best as I could, emphasizing that I wasn't trying to attack her personally. Ethan was furious. He accused me of being controlling, judgmental, and of trying to sabotage his relationship. He said that I didn't trust him to handle himself around Lisa and that I was infantilizing him. The fallout didn't stop there. I mentioned it casually to a few cousins and friends who were close to the family, and almost all of them sided with Ethan. They said I was being unreasonable and that if Lisa caused drama, it would reflect poorly on her, not me. I argued that drama doesn't always come with warning signs and that some people's personalities clash with certain environments, but everyone kept saying I was overthinking things. The week leading up to the reunion was tense. Ethan refused to speak to me except through text, and our parents seemed annoyed with both of us. I tried reaching out to Lisa directly to explain that I wasn't trying to be mean, but she interpreted it as a personal attack and told me not to contact her again. I started second-guessing myself and wondered if I had been too rigid, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that allowing her there would have been a disaster. When the day of the reunion arrived, Ethan came, but refused to speak to me the entire time. Lisa stayed home. The reunion itself was mostly fine, though there were a few awkward moments where other family members tried to get Ethan and me to reconcile. Some of the cousins whispered that they were disappointed I had turned a fun family event into a standoff. My parents were passive-aggressive in a way that was hard to ignore, giving me side glances and sighs throughout the day. After the reunion, Ethan sent me a long text blasting me for controlling his life and creating unnecessary drama when I wasn't even present during any actual conflict. He said he's reconsidering our relationship if I keep trying to dictate who he can and cannot spend time with. I haven't responded yet because I genuinely don't know if I overstepped. I feel like my concerns were valid, but at the same time, I don't want to lose my brother over this. I also can't shake the feeling that if I had allowed Lisa to come, there would have been an incident, whether it was a screaming match, a scene, or someone leaving in tears. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother bring his girlfriend to our family reunion. Even though everyone else thinks I'm overreacting, the story currently stands at 6,486 characters, fitting within your requested range. If you want, I can expand it a little further with extra family drama, detailed interactions during the reunion, and the aftermath, pushing it closer to the 7,000 character limit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to take care of my sister's kids after she got herself into a mess. So, a bit of context. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. We've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, Emily was the free spirit, and I was the responsible one, which caused a lot of friction. Our parents tended to enable her impulsiveness while I got lectured for every small mistake. Anyway, we've mostly been okay as adults, though there's always underlying tension. About 6 months ago, Emily announced that she was moving in with her boyfriend, Jack, 27M, and that she was pregnant. I was genuinely happy for her at first because she seemed excited and ready. Jack seemed fine on the surface. He was charming and funny, but I always had this gut feeling that he was kind of irresponsible. Emily brushed me off when I expressed concern, saying I was being overly judgmental and that she could handle it. Fast forward to 3 months later. Emily and Jack are living together in a small apartment, barely managing rent, and she calls me one evening completely panicked. Apparently, Jack had left for a business trip that lasted 3 weeks. It was actually a festival he wanted to attend out of state, and she was alone with their 3-month-old daughter. She said she couldn't handle it anymore. Her postpartum anxiety was bad, and she needed me to take the baby for a while. I had a full-time job, a demanding one at that, and no experience raising a baby beyond babysitting my friends' kids occasionally. I politely told her I couldn't take the baby permanently, but I offered to help her out a few hours a day while she figured out other options. She cried, begged, and kept insisting that I was the only one who could save her from being overwhelmed. I agreed to help for a few hours over the next couple of days. At first, it was manageable. I figured I'd do this short term, and then she could either hire a babysitter or come up with a plan. But then Emily started pushing the boundaries. She would drop the baby off for entire days, sometimes overnight, without warning. She'd text me in the middle of my work days, panicking over feeding schedules, naps, or random things like, I think the baby's teething at 3 months. I tried setting limits, but she would guilt-trip me nonstop, saying things like, you're my only family, and I guess I just don't matter to you. 2 weeks in, Jack comes back for a weekend, and I find out he didn't even call Emily once while he was gone. I told Emily that she and Jack need to figure out their responsibilities because this isn't sustainable. She snapped, accusing me of being selfish and cold. She said, I raised you, and now you won't help me? How could you? That hurt because, well, I wasn't the one who abandoned anyone. She had a partner. She could have asked him for help, or they could have hired someone. But I felt cornered and anxious, so I said no more long-term babysitting. I told her I could do emergency situations or maybe a few hours on weekends, but that's it. Since then, things have escalated. She's been posting on social media subtle digs at me, tagging me in posts about family who doesn't help, and even leaving passive-aggressive notes at my apartment. Jack acts like nothing is happening, and Emily keeps trying to guilt me into saying yes again, offering to pay me or promising that it'll be different this time. I feel like she's exploiting our relationship and using the baby as leverage. I also feel incredibly guilty because I don't want to seem like a terrible sister, but the stress is affecting my mental health and work. Yesterday, she texted me that she might have to put the baby in foster care temporarily if no one helps her. I immediately called her and told her I wouldn't take responsibility for her choices and that she needs to figure this with Jack or professional childcare. She cried, yelled, and then hung up on me. Now I'm getting texts from mutual friends saying I'm being heartless, and my parents are upset saying I should help family in need, even if it's inconvenient. I feel trapped because I love my niece and want to be in her life, but I also feel like I'm being used. I've tried talking to Emily rationally about boundaries, but she refuses to accept them. I also can't help but think that if roles were reversed, she probably wouldn't hesitate to demand my full-time help. I don't want to cut her out completely, but I also need to protect myself. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to take care of my sister's baby long-term, even though she's in a tough spot. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.